In this video, we're going to review some of the key concepts that are going to be important for you to bring with you from previous chemistry courses as we begin to introduce and talk about inorganic chemistry. Namely, in this video, we're going to review things like quantum numbers and electron configuration. And what I'm going to do now is show on the screen a question that has basically, we're looking at the electron configuration of a few different atoms or ions. And what I would like for you to do anytime you see me bring up one of these problems is to actually pause the video and try to work it out independently. We're going to go and do similar things like this throughout the semester, and it's important that you try the concepts before resuming the video to watch my explanations. Let's quickly review quantum numbers. The principal quantum number n tells you the distance from the nucleus where we can find electrons. You can think of this as the nucleus being made up of protons and neutrons of an atom. And then at the n equals 1 state is the first shell with which we can find electrons. Again, that's the n equals 1 state. The n equals 2 state is the next discrete or quantized energy level with which we can find electrons. And similarly, n can go from all the way from 1 to 2 to 3, all the way up to, theoretically, infinity. And again, this tells you the distance from the nucleus with which we can find electrons, or the discrete energy level that electrons are located at. L is the angular momentum quantum number, which has values from 0 all the way to n minus 1. M sub L is our magnetic quantum number. And these are always going to be equal to negative L to 0 to positive L. And this is actually going to tell you the direction or the orientation in three-dimensional space that the orbitals are oriented. So L, being the angular momentum quantum number, actually tells us the shape of the orbital. For L is equal to 0, that's an s orbital, which has a spherical shape. For L is equal to 1, that's a p orbital, which looks like kind of like a dumbbell, where you have a shaded and an unshaded region. When L is equal to 2, that is a d orbital, of which there are 5. Most of them look like four-leaf clovers. 3 of them, the dxy, the dxz, and the dyz, all look like four-leaf clovers. However, we also have one that kind of looks like a dumbbell with a donut around it. And then also, the other one looks like another four-leaf clover, except for how the dxy, the dxz, and the dyz all lie in between the axes. For the dx squared minus y squared, we actually have our four-leaf clover that lies on the x and the y axis. So 4 of them overall look like four-leaf clovers. One looks like a dumbbell with a donut around it, is the way that I like to think about it. And then M sub L tells you the direction. Now you would have likely have heard of M sub L values as px, py, and the pz orbitals. But in fact, these actually have numerical values of p negative 1, p0, and p positive 1. And again, if L is equal to 1, then that's a p orbital, and then you should see that your M sub L is negative L to positive L, which in this case would be negative 1 to 0 to positive 1. Okay, and this just tells you in space, so let's say that we have an x-axis and a y-axis here, that the px orbital is the one that lies along the x-axis. That's the px orbital. Whereas the py orbital would be the one that lies along the y-axis. Kind of like this. And then your last quantum number is your m sub s value, which is your spin quantum number. And those values are always either plus or minus 1/2. When thinking about the electron configurations for atoms or ions, it's important to consider a full energy level diagram picture to how we generate our electron configurations. Remember that we always start at the lowest energy, which is going to be at our n equals 1 state. At n equals 1, we know that our L value is either 0 all the way up to n minus 1, which in this case would have to be 0, which is an s orbital, which is why you only find a 1s orbital on your electron configuration at the n equals 1 state. From there, we know that at n equals 2, our L values could be 0 or 1, or in this case, an s or a p orbital, which is 0 and 1 respectively. And then as we move up to n equals 3, we can generate L values that are 0, 1, or 2, where 2 is the d orbitals. And then subsequently, as we continue to go to the n equals 4 state, that allows us to get to 0, 1, 2, and 3, where 3 is actually an f orbital, which we'll talk some about in this class. So, here is our energy level diagram. We know that as we begin to populate our energy diagram and generate our electron configuration, according to the Aufbau principle, we have to start at the lowest energy level before proceeding on to the next energy level, or the next orbital, which means that we'll start at the n equals 1 state. So calcium is the 20th element on the periodic table, which means that it has 20 protons in the nucleus, which gives rise to the identity of the element. And in its neutral state, it's going to also have 20 electrons to balance those out. So as we begin to place our 20 electrons, we start at the bottom by placing 1 electron in the up direction and 1 electron in the down direction. Okay, so that uses up 2 of our 20 electrons. Now we can move on to the next energy level, where we can place 2 more electrons in the 2s orbitals, 1 up and 1 down, or in other words, our ms values are plus 1/2 and minus 1/2. That's what we mean when we say up or down, plus 1/2, negative 1/2. Now we can move on to the 2p orbitals. Now, according to Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, we should first populate our orbitals by placing all of the electrons going in the same direction. This actually generates a more stable or lower in energy electron configuration. Now we can begin to place electrons and pair them up in their orbitals. Okay, so this means we've used 2, 4, plus 6 is going to be a total of 10 electrons, which means we have 10 more to go. So we can place our next 2 orbitals in the 3s orbitals. Now we can move on to placing 3 more electrons in the 3p orbitals, and then 3 more also in pairing those up. Okay, so this means we've used 18 of our total of 20 electrons. Now typically you've learned that the n equals 4 state, or the 4s orbital, is a little bit lower in energy than the 3d orbitals, which is why for calcium you place the next 2 electrons in the 4s orbital. Importantly, and this is going to be important as we begin to talk about transition metals, while it's true that these have different energy values, and that typically we associate the 3d orbitals as being higher in energy, the truth is that the energy difference is not very significant. And you'll see that come up when we start to talk about some of those transition metals. All right, so now that we've generated our energy diagram, we can begin to write out our full electron configuration for calcium. So n equals 1 gives us our coefficient. Our L value is s, which is our s orbital, and then it gets a superscript of 2, indicating that there are 2 electrons there. Then we move on to the 2s2 orbitals, followed by the 2p, and we have 6 electrons in the 2p orbitals. Now we go to our 3s, which has 2 electrons, our 3p, which has 6 electrons, and then finally, our 4s orbital has 2 electrons. And this is the full electron configuration for calcium. Now the difference between calcium in its neutral state and calcium 2 plus ion is 2 electrons. Calcium 2 plus forms by removing 2 of the electrons from the valence shell, which is going to then drop down the valence shell to the n equals 3 state. And these ions typically form because when the 2 electrons are found in the 4s state, this is actually an unfilled valence shell. And we have learned from previous chemistry courses, you probably have learned it as ions form because they like to have the same electron configuration as their nearest noble gas. But what like actually means is that we find that these ions form because they are more stable, or in other words, they end up at a lower energy level. Notice that it's at a lower energy level. That's what stability means, lower energy. The lower energy electron configuration is when you have the full valence shell of orbitals. So notice, after we have removed those 2 electrons from the 4s orbital, our electron configuration for calcium 2 plus leaves us with an electron configuration where all of the valence shell are completely populated with electrons. So for that reason, this is the electron configuration for calcium 2 plus. Now, if we were to consider chromium, and following the same set of rules that we did for calcium, you might expect that the electron energy diagram would be populated like this, where you place your 2 electrons at the 4s orbital because you have learned that they are lower in energy than the 3d orbitals, followed by 4 electrons all going in the same direction in the 5 degenerate d orbitals. But it turns out, in fact, that this would be incorrect. Consider for a moment Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. When considering Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, which states that if you have electrons in the same degenerate orbitals all going in the same direction, this ends up being more stable or lower in energy, then what you should see is that if we were to take one of these electrons in the 4s orbitals and actually share them with the 3d orbitals, now what you should see is that all of these electrons would be going into the same direction. And this thus satisfies Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. And what you might be saying is that, yeah, that's true, but only if they are degenerate or at the same energy level. Well, as I just mentioned, the 4s orbital and the 3d orbital are actually very, very close in energy. So as a result, the electron configuration that results in a lower energy or a more stable electron configuration is when you actually do take that electron and fully populate all 5 of the d orbitals with electrons all going in the same direction. Now, this kind of exception to the rule that you may have assumed before this class only arises when you have the opportunity to populate electrons that completely fill an orbital group all in the same direction. So similarly, one other type of example that does this is copper. So if you were to look at the electron configuration of copper, you have your 1s orbital, your 2s orbitals, your 2p orbitals, 3s, 3p, 4s, and your 3d orbitals. If you were to look at copper, what you would see is that you can generate an electron configuration where you can actually completely fill the 3d orbital simply by taking one of the electrons and placing them there. And this is in opposition to what you may have done previously, where you may have left this single unpaired electron into the 3d orbital. But because these 3d orbitals and these 4s orbitals are so close in energy, the reality is that you generate an electron configuration where you fully populate these 5 degenerate d orbitals with paired electrons by taking the electron from the 4s orbital and placing it into the 3d orbital. Now that we know the full electron configuration for chromium, let's consider after you have ionized chromium by 1 electron to create a 23 electron species. Now we need to revisit our electron configuration for chromium and figure out which one of these electrons we're going to remove. Because the 3D set of orbitals has 5, meaning all 5 of the orbitals have a single electron going in the same direction, we need to consider which orbital is going to be easiest to remove an electron or ionize an electron. Now in our class, we're actually going to do some calculations that allow you to see which one of these electrons would be the first to be removed upon ionization. But you can think about it just from a qualitative approach. Since you have 5 orbitals here, all with a single electron going in the same direction, which we have said is a lower energy conformation or more stable, then by removing a single one of those electrons, we significantly reduce the stability or the energy stabilization that has occurred from this scenario. Instead, what you'll find is that we can remove the 4s orbital, leaving the 3d orbital all with a single electron going in the same direction. And actually, it turns out that this is more energetically favorable. And you'll see as we do these calculations, as it relates to something called shielding, is kind of what gives rise to this. So, because it is easier to remove the electron from the 4s orbital, that is what actually ends up happening. And in fact, with all transition metals, when you ionize transition metals, it's actually not the d orbital that is losing an electron first, but it's actually the s orbital. Now, if we were talking about something like chromium 2+, which has lost 2 electrons, then sure, now you can go in and take one of those d electrons. However, the first one would always come from the s orbital. And the same would be true for any transition metal. So, for example, palladium, when the 2+ charge, the first 2 electrons to go come from the 4s orbital.